when you start talking about free, prior, and informed consent or duty, consult, and accommodate, it doesn't create any new rights.
Tonight, the bill to harmonize Canadian law with the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples stalls in the Senate.
We're focusing on generating wealth for the nation so that we can take care of ourselves.
A small First Nation on the west coast of Vancouver Island signs a multi-million-dollar forestry deal.
I was singing Universal Soldier. I went to London, I was singing in London, so Donovan recorded it, so everybody thought he wrote it.
And Buffy Sainte-Marie inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and how she had to buy back rights to her song, Universal Soldier. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. Nunavut is celebrating its 20th birthday as a territory today. And in a special series, our reporter Charlotte Mort-Jacobs partnered with Up Here magazine to travel to several remote communities and ask youth what challenges they face and what they hope to see in Nunavut's future. Today we have a look at employment in the territory and what young people are hoping for when it comes to work.
Rankin Inlet was traditionally a place to camp when following the caribou migration. It wasn't until the 1950s and 60s that Inuit settled into the area to work. Since then, it has been a mining, transportation, and economic hub.
But yeah, it's always been a mining town, and when you guys went to explore the other day, we saw the old mills from the mine, and if you remember playing around there, you had a pretty good childhood.
What does it feel to be a hero?
Atuit Sholdis grew up here and wants the same childhood for his two sons. But he doesn't want the same resource extraction jobs paving their future into adulthood. For many like him, government and mining jobs seem like the only feasible gig to cover high living expenses. At least for now.
My Rankin's home. Nunavut's home. I want to raise my boys there. Or here. If you hang out with my boys a little while, you'll see that they're their own little people.
Rankin Inlet is a young town. Nearly 30% of the population is under 14 years of age. Sholdis is hopeful his boys and other youth in the community will be able to explore a more diverse range of jobs. And he thinks education is the key, and so does the Nunavut government, who are trying to get more kids to get through school and go on to university.
When you come back with knowledge about anything, I guess any trade, any profession, you come back with knowledge where you can even pass on that knowledge to somebody who's from here, to on-site training or anything like that. They're always celebrated.
That pride is exactly what Donovan Gordon Tutu has found while enrolled in Nunavut Sarakelwak, a transitional program in Ottawa for Inuit students. He has returned to Rankin to work at the mines and save money before attending university down south for political science and Indigenous studies.
It taught us a lot about our history, about the land claims agreement and how that came to be. And learning about that stuff is quite important because I figured it brings us a lot more perspective about the North and where we're from. I figured, why didn't we have any of these taught to us when we were in high school?
Gordon Tutu isn't against new mineral mines popping up in the territory. He just wants to see Nunavummiut benefit from the foreseen economic boom from them.
I think that if we can, we should try and build those industries while we have the money coming in from those organizations. I know that the Kivaluk Inuit organization does get royalties from the mine, so I'm hoping that they'll be able to use that to, as they do, create programs for Inuit that'll benefit the health of the communities.
Jobs focused in sustainability and culture are high on his radar.
One thing I am kind of worried about is like if the option for hunting and being sustainable on subsistence economy, if we are not supporting our hunters, then those cultural practices are not also being learned. And it has an effect in multiple ways because that can also affect our mental health.
It's hard for Donovan to leave his family, like his baby niece. He says the best incentives for post-secondary students is to build on programs made for Inuit by Inuit and where Inuit live in communities surrounded by their family.
If there was a university in the north, that would make it a lot easier to access for a lot of people. Giving that opportunity to get an education might inspire more younger people to go and get their education, get their high school diploma.
Like Donovan, Atuit Sholdis decided to work in government. But he dreams of a Rankin Inlet where he can work as a full-time guide, and that his sons would also have that option too.
I have tents and stuff. I can accommodate, as long as they're in town, I can accommodate the person and I can show them wildlife. I can show them polar bears and caribou and falcons and the wildlife they want to come and see, and I can tour them around town to meet people and see different things. But it's to get them here is the struggle.
Charlotte Mort-Jacobs, APTN National News, Rankin Inlet.
There's also sad news for Nunavut residents. Over the weekend, the Speaker of Nunavut's Legislative Assembly passed away. Joe Inuk was the MLA for Pond Inlet, and this was the third time he'd been elected to that office. He was chosen Speaker in November of 2017. His colleagues say that was because he could keep calm while others were debating. Inuk died in an Ottawa hospital on Friday after a short illness. He was 61 years old. In British Columbia, logging companies used to cut trees on First Nation land with little care about consent or the environment. But now things are changing, and a remote First Nation on Vancouver Island has signed a multi-million-dollar forestry deal. APTN's Tina House has that story.
Situated on the west coast of Vancouver Island is Anakla, one of the many villages of the Huayet First Nation. It's surrounded by the Pacific Ocean and old-growth trees dating back hundreds of years.
If I was to guess how old this spruce tree is, it would be in the hundreds of years. I would probably be willing to guess to say, 300 to 400 years old. And I would easily say that it's probably close to between the 250 to 300 foot range.
Chief Councillor Robert Dennis says his community honors its traditions of maintaining the land, but they also know that it takes an economy to flourish a community. They currently own 9 businesses in all sectors.
We're focusing on generating wealth for the nation so that we can take care of ourselves, so that we can provide the resources that our people need to, so that they can live healthy lives, our culture can be revived.
And today is an example of that. The Huayet First Nation is hosting a community celebration and feast as they sign a forestry deal with Western Forest Products. It's worth $7.2 million. This signing is also done as their ancestors did, with cedar X's and wax to seal it. The deal is for 7% of a tree farm license called the TFL 44. It extends into the traditional territory of the First Nation. High Hereditary Chief Clishan followed tradition by bringing his daughter Homaniki, who's next in line to being Hereditary Chief, to the celebration.
On behalf of our Hereditary Chiefs, this is a positive step for our small First Nation out here on the West Coast. We have come a really long way, and we have strong relationships, and we're really proud of that.
Historically, Chief Dennis says that up until 20 years ago, wood was extracted from their territory without their knowledge or consent. But this new partnership will provide them a huge opportunity to have say in resource management, training and jobs, as well as money to invest into its programs and services for its members.
By engaging with Huayet First Nations and becoming partners together in TFL 44, we're bringing that fiber basket back together and increasing collaboration across the entire land base.
Tina House, APTN National News, Anakla, BC.
Professional wrestling is very popular across Turtle Island, especially in Ganawage, where a Mohawk tag team is rising up the ranks. Here now is Tom Fenario with a preview for a story he is working on.
Hailing from Ganawage, Mohawk Territory and weighing in at a combined weight of 430 pounds, it's the Dad Bod Squad. The fan favorites have been making waves in the Quebec independent wrestling circuit, and now they're off to New Jersey to make their U.S. debut. But first they have to take care of business against obnoxious oil millionaires from the Montreal suburbs. Find out how they did later this week on APTN National News.
Here's a look at Tuesday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. Sunny and 7 above for Halifax, +3 in St. John's. 11 below under sunny skies for Nain, -3 with snow in Cartwright. 0 for Quebec City, +4 in Montreal. +5 with showers for Toronto, snow and 0 in Ottawa. -2 under sunny skies for Thunder Bay, +3 with snow for Wawa. -4 in Churchill, +2 in Puckatawagan and Thompson. +2 under sunny skies in Winnipeg and Barons River, 0 in Brandon. +1 with snow for Regina and Saskatoon, 6 above with showers in North Battleford. -3 in Meadow Lake, -6 in Buffalo Narrows. Welcome back to Ottawa now, where the opposition is accusing the Prime Minister of not being truthful with Canadians about the SNC-Lavalin affair. The Conservatives went on the attack during question period in the House of Commons, just days after audio from a telephone call between former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould and Privy Council Clerk Michael Wernick was publicly released. Here's a bit of what went on.
Revealed in the tapes last week prove that the Prime Minister has not been telling the truth. The Prime Minister not only had the knowledge about the pressure being applied on the former Attorney General, but he and his office were in fact orchestrating it. Wow. As the clerk said, the Prime Minister wanted his way and he was going to get it. Now, I know I'm not allowed to say that the Prime Minister lied, so my question is this. Why did the Prime Minister give deceitful and false information to Canadians regarding the pressure he and his office applied to the former Attorney General?
The Honourable Opposition House Leader knows that you can't do indirectly what you can't do directly, so I'd ask her to be careful with that. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's important that Canadians be reminded that the Prime Minister gave unprecedented access to the former Attorney General. He waived sister-client privilege as well as cabinet confidence. It's also important to note that the Prime Minister has taken responsibility for the breakdown of communication within his office as well as with the clerk of the Privy Council. It's important to note that the Justice Committee looked at this matter for over 5 weeks. They actually held meetings in public so that Canadians could hear. And it's also important to note that the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner is currently studying this matter.
I trusted her. Then can you really, in cabinet, for instance, you have to be able to have a conversation with full trust. You may even shout at one another over some of the issues. We did in a cabinet when I was in it, for sure. And you walk out as a team. To think in this country, Canada, a Privy Councillor, the top political position in the country, sitting around a cabinet table, will actually take and tape a conversation, and in my listening to it, I felt she had to be reading from a script at times to try and draw out, to make the clerk and the Prime Minister and cabinet colleagues and us that sit in caucus with her look bad. Of course I'm angry.
Justin Trudeau has already tried to cover up this scandal by shutting down 2 separate parliamentary investigations into his scandal. We are not accepting his cover-up, and I will speak for hours and hours on end until the Prime Minister agrees to end the cover-up and begin the investigation so Canadians can get the full truth.
Still in Ottawa, where there's no question, Bill C-262 has stopped dead in its tracks in the Senate. The proposed legislation would make sure the laws of Canada are in harmony with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It was sent to the Senate 10 months ago, but has yet to make it to committee. This morning, a press conference was held urging the Senate to pass C-262 before Parliament ends in June, and to reassure Canadians the bill poses no threats and won't be used to veto resource development.
And so when you start talking about free, prior, and informed consent or the duty to consult and accommodate, it doesn't create any new rights. We say it's the right to get involved and bring people to the table sooner than later. And if that happens, you would never ever get to the point where veto is even questioned. And we made the point that veto is not in the UN Declaration.
It's just a strong message of encouragement so that senators know absolutely this is of vital importance to Indigenous peoples across the country, but beyond, groups like Amnesty International and many others, there are Canadians right across the country who understand that this is our shared opportunity to move forward with a meaningful framework for reconciliation, and the Senate cannot squander this opportunity.
The aunt of Nadine Machiskinek says a report released about the investigation into her niece's death is important for all Indigenous peoples. Machiskinek was found severely injured in the laundry room of Regina's Delta Hotel in 2015. She later died in hospital. A new report conducted by the RCMP found the Regina Police Force investigation into her death did not meet standards. Dolores Stevenson says the report validates what she's been saying all along, that Regina police investigators did not do their job. She ties the high rates of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls to police investigations. Stevenson says Indigenous people have to fight twice as hard to get answers and justice. She worries other families have experienced the same treatment.
And I imagine that there's other families out there that the deaths of their loved ones or the investigation, this brings into question other investigations, how they're being handled, how they're being treated, how they're being investigated, really. And I'm not going to sugarcoat anything because it was a very poor investigation.
It's a big night for Buffy Sainte-Marie tonight as she's inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. We'll hear from Buffy after the break. Here's the rest of Tuesday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. +5 with snow for Grand Prairie, +2 in Peace River, 9 above in Medicine Hat, +11 for Lethbridge, 13 above for Vancouver, +14 in Victoria, +1 with snow for Fort Nelson, 10 above in Dease Lake, +12 in Whitehorse, 8 above for Watson Lake, +1 in snow for Fort Liard and Trout Lake, -7 with snow in Norman Wells, 27 below for Sax Harbor, -14 in Inuvik, -18 in Repulse Bay, snow and 15 below for Chesterfield, -20 in Arctic Bay, -19 in Resolute. Welcome back. Buffy Sainte-Marie is an award-winning artist, Indigenous activist, and songwriter, and now she is being inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame at tonight's SOCAN Awards in Toronto. Our Amber Bernard had the pleasure of sitting down with her.
You've been inducted into the Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame, so how does it feel?
Since I can remember. The earliest things that I can remember is like when I was about 3, seeing a piano and never wanting to get up, and it became my Barbie dolls and my sports. It's just what I love to do. And I didn't have any teachers, so I just did it any way I wanted to, and I did the same things that every other little kid does. I made up stories and songs and stuff to dance to, and it was songwriting 101, although nobody would have said so. So after all these years, it's nice to have finally somebody says so. and SOCAN is honoring me. See, I really like songwriting, and so I honor SOCAN right back.
What is your inspiration behind songwriting?
Songs are really, really valuable, I think, and a lot of fun. And that's kind of the point with me, because I play music. I don't work at it. I play. I really enjoy it. I love it.
Your song, Universal Soldier, was inducted into the same Hall of Fame, but you had to buy the rights back to it. So how did that happen?
I was singing Universal Soldier. I went to London. I was singing it in London. So Donovan recorded it. So everybody thought he wrote it because he is a writer and writes things of conscience. And every song that he sings is written by himself except for two. Universal Soldier, which I wrote, and Codine, which I wrote. So everybody assumed that Donovan wrote those two, you know, which were kind of hits for him. When I first wrote Universal Soldier and sang it in Greenwich Village, the Highwaymen were coming off a hit called Michael Row the Boat Ashore. It was like #1 all over the world. And they wanted to record Universal Soldier. Okay, I said, yeah, sure. And they said, well, who's the publisher? I had just gotten off stage. I had sat down with them at a table, a guy at the next table in this little club in Greenwich Village. I said, I don't have a publisher. And the guy on the table next said, well, I can help you. Sign here. So I gave away the rights to Universal Soldier for $1. And I was happy to do so. I didn't know anything about publishing. So it made just a fortune for somebody, but not for me. And so 10 years later, I had made enough money myself on other things so that I could buy it back. I bought back the rights to Universal Soldier for $25,000 I had to give the guy. So that's what I did, and I never gave away the rights to a song again.
And any advice for aspiring musicians?
The first time you hear applause, a lot of people get stuck right there. They say, oh, that's success, and they never learn another chord, and they never develop. There are so many of our Indigenous musicians who kind of are the same all the time. The songs are all in the same key, they're all in the same tempo, they're all in the same genre, and that's good, but they're never going to get outside of that. And if you want to reach a lot of people, it's really good to have a lot of musical ideas popping into your head, because you reach different people with different kinds of music, different genres of music. It's almost like different languages, or the same language with different accents. A lot of people in Paris can't understand a Quebecois accent, right? And people who took French in high school, like me, you know, we may have learned how to speak one French, but we can't understand the other. And genres of music are kind of like that too. And almost everyone who is inexperienced in a genre of music says exactly the same thing. It all sounds the same, whether it's opera, country music, oh, it all sounds the same. Indigenous music, oh, it all sounds the same. Just sounds like screaming, right? So you get all these kind of wacky ideas. But I've been really, really happy in writing a lot of different styles of music, because I like a lot of styles of music. So that means I listen a lot before I open my mouth and say something.
Huge congrats to Buffy Sainte-Marie on yet another honor. That's your APTN National News for this Monday. For much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and download the APTN News app. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.